and welcome to The Life of an Entrepreneur. I'm Jan McCarthy with Entrepreneurial Voice, and we are broadcasting from skidrowstudios.com, downtown, real radio on the internet. And we are here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you have questions during the show, you can call in at 1-800-893-9562, and we would love to hear from you. Today, I am so excited. This is really, really thrilling to be able to interview Amanda McAuliffe, and she has the magazine Arsenic. Well, the magazine. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell me, we've met briefly before, and you're completely fascinating. So tell me, I want to know everything. Like, were you thinking about this when you were growing up, that I want to have a magazine? What led you to where you are having this magazine? So tell me a little bit about you.
Like many things in my life, I sort of, I joke that it was an accident, and it really wasn't. There were a lot of deliberate choices, but I did not set out to start a magazine. My background is film and TV production, and like many people in this town, you'll be familiar with the development process, and you oftentimes set things up and you're trying to attach directors and actors, and it's kind of a hurry up and wait game. And so last winter, actually, about a year ago, I was in that situation. I had set a few projects up. We had some financing, but we needed other elements before we could get a green light. And I was really, really missing the collaborative process of being on a movie set or a commercial set, and was sort of looking for something to do to let me collaborate with other creative people and create something. And, you sort of get a Jones off doing that. That's different than just developing projects, to sort of see something come to fruition and come to light. And so out of a moment of desperation, I called up a friend of mine who was a photographer and asked her if she wanted to do a still shoot. Her name's Kate Romero. She's an unbelievably talented photographer, and we did 2 shoots together, and it went really, really well. And I had these images left and wasn't quite sure what to do with them. So I was sort of looking around at my options and thought maybe I would do a blog, maybe I would, submit them to magazines, etc. And in that process, also realized what a lack of curation there was on the internet, which sounds like a silly thing because it should be painfully obvious, but I had always used the internet for such very sort of specific things that I was looking for something. So it was easy to put in a search term. But if you put in a broad search term when you're looking for some sort of a vibe or an aesthetic, you get everything. I mean, literally people's kids' pictures are mixed in with their party pictures, mixed in with what you're looking for. And I started thinking about the fact that I thought there would be a lot of value in curating what is out there artistically within a certain genre. And that's sort of where Arsenic came from, was this need to put my images somewhere, as well as this realization that I could curate other artistic endeavors in the same vein. So Arsenic it's a magazine, but it's really meant to be a platform for other creative people that are on brand and sort of have the same voice that we do. So we would love to get to the point where 80% of the content is submitted. Right now, I don't know the exact percentage. I would estimate somewhere between 50 and 60%, and the rest we're producing. But really, we would just kind of like to turn the magazine over to the crowd. Our tagline is, "It's your magazine, we just help you run it." And that's really where we want to take it. Right down to having the readers vote on things, and that's how they sort of get, hierarchy. So almost like a cool, edgy, sexy version of, a BuzzFeed or Reddit. Yeah. That happens now, but it happens with us. We do it. I put things up, and my team and I sort of look at what's getting a lot of traction or likes, and then we choose to either ask that person for more images or do an interview or work with them. I would love for that to literally be completely hands-off without the sort of subjectivity of us being involved.
And this magazine is strictly online at this point, right?
It is. If you came to the Arsenic offices, you would hear me say at least once a day, print is dead. And while I don't completely believe that the medium is completely over, I do think for a new magazine, the internet is an amazing way to get your voice out there and be heard. And if you look at magazines, that are print, they're having a hard time sort of getting a foothold in the digital market. Whereas if you have a foothold in the digital market, you can then kind of decide if you ever want to issue special releases or stay strictly online. We like being online. I like that we can pivot and change. And if something's working, we can do more of it. If it's not working, no big deal. We, move on. So I'm actually not interested in getting into the print game, even though everyone seems to think that's the brass ring.
Well, by the very nature of that you are very creative, and you wanted this to be a creative venue to be able to do exactly what you just said, be able to pivot, to be able to change, to be able to add and delete content as you see fit, and even change the whole scope of the way the magazine looks. And if it were print, that would really limit you.
Exactly. It can breathe this way. It's really
That's a
fluid.
great word, breathe.
And I love that. I think it's part of why, in the film business, there's so much expense, even on a low budget movie, that at some point you're committed, and that's what you're doing. And you can't afford to go back and reshoot and huge chunks of the movie unless you're a giant studio movie. This is easy. I mean, we can, as you said, like literally from day to day, as the audience demands, we can sort of react to them and change.
Well, I think this is really, really exciting, and you've touched on several things that entrepreneurs need to be thinking about when they're starting out. Is that it's really kind of, even though it may have sort of started as an accident, or I find that most things start from a place of pain or passion, and meaning pain that there was a problem out there. You said, oh, there's no place to put all of this content, and I want to be able to find a place to do that. So you did. You created this thing, and then you do have to be very creative. You have to think outside the box in terms of, well, there are lots of magazines out there, and knowing that print is definitely going in a different direction. It can't stay the way it has been with all of the technological advances that we have. I mean, that's just crazy to think that it could, and you didn't want that anyway. So you have to think, okay, well, how can I stand out there and be different? And I love that you just mentioned also that you started out at this place of digital, and you can go actually back to print more easily than someone can go from print to digital. So they're having to rework everything. I also love the idea that you, in being different, you said, "Oh, okay, let's curate and let's really bring this in instead of hiring this full-time staff, which you may have a full-time staff, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But instead of hiring a full-time staff where they do the same things every time, you're really reaching out and thinking outside the box, and that's really important to realize what's going to help you to stand out and how you're going to move forward with that." So let's back to when you were a little girl.
All right.
Because I want to know how you actually even get to this place. And then I want to fast forward again to go back to say, okay, yeah, you had this idea, but people have ideas every day, but they don't always execute them. And so how did you go forward with that? But let's start back when you were little. What were you thinking about I wanted to do when I grow up?
I wanted to be a killer whale trainer.
And what made you think that this would be something that would be fun and different? So obviously you have an adventuresome spirit, and that's critical for every entrepreneur.
I mean, I don't think I thought about it very much. I think that I grew up in a ranch in Texas. So big horses and cows and sort of those kind of animals didn't seem that interesting or foreign to me. So I think I was fascinated with sea creatures, sharks, whales, you name it, from a very young age, obsessed. And so I made my parents drag me to SeaWorld many, many times. And at some point, and I was very young, I became sort of entranced with this idea of getting to play with them and swim with them and, communicate with them. And so for many, many years, that was really what I thought I wanted to be, a killer whale trainer. Then I got in high school. I took biology, and I discovered that I didn't enjoy science very much. And so being a marine biologist, which is the background most killer whale trainers have, seemed like maybe not really in the cards for me. I realized that sort of my passion really stemmed from sort of this love of animals, not this deep-seated desire to be a scientist. And I started looking into kind of other ideas. And sort of with a lack of something to do, I stumbled into the theater in my high school. And did not want to be an actress at all, but saw this need for a stage manager or produce. Almost really in my school, it was almost like a producing role. We had this amazing creative teacher, but he was not very organized. And I guess how old are you when you're a freshman? 15 years old, I kind of started organizing this department to the point that the high school even was just like, leave her be, just let her do her thing. And I sort of was this student professional role in that I kind of ran the whole theater department until I graduated. And that was sort of the first clue I had that I might like to get into something like that, which eventually led to my film career.
So you've touched on some skills that I think are very important for entrepreneurs too, and the fact that you're very organized and you were able to see a problem and how do I solve it and move forward with that. And then you're also courageous because obviously you must have moved from Texas at some point to get to Los Angeles.
I did that also. I look back and I think that there were many moments in my life where I was at a crossroads, but I seem to be blind to those moments until after the fact, which has served me well. I don't know if it's a good quality to have, but it certainly served me well. And moving out here was one of those. I had been working on movies in Texas. I realized that you can only sort of grow to a certain point. Not living in New York or LA, it's difficult to get sort of beyond a certain level, and knew that wasn't going to be satisfying to me. So that maybe LA was in my future. And I was just playing with that idea, and somebody overheard me talking to one of my girlfriends, and they were going to be out of town for a month when this movie wrapped, and they offered me their house. So I came to LA to house sit for a month, and I never left. I have amazing parents, which really play into so much of my life and how I've been able to do the things that I've done. And my mother literally packed my apartment and put it on a truck because I found a job in the month that I was out here. So I did move to LA, but it was one of those things that I think in the moment of making that decision, I didn't realize what a major decision it was going to be. It just sort of it happened, and I had an opportunity and I just grabbed a hold of it.
Well, I think that's great. We have to say yes to opportunity. And sometimes, even if we don't know how it's going to all fall out, just at least trying it. And those are certain traits, I think, that are so important for an entrepreneur and having some of the skills that you had. So did you recognize early on to say, I have the skill set, these are my strengths, and really recognize them, and how can I best parlay these into something that I want to do?
I mean, maybe subconsciously. Consciously, I sort of looked at the opportunities that were in front of me or the jobs in the film business and quickly sort of went, well, I either want to be an assistant director or a producer. It suited me. And I think part of the reason it suited me is, everyone likes to be good at something. So I kind of recognized that was somewhere where I could excel, where I had been given accolades, where people had patted me on the back. And so why not sort of stay in that arena where you know that you're going to achieve something? So then it was sort of narrowing down those two positions. And I realized, well, the task of an assistant director is monumental. It wouldn't really have been satisfying to me creatively, which is where I started sort of leaning into producing. And worked for this, once I got out here, I went to work for a woman named Sally Newman, who I had met previously in Texas. And she really took me under her wing and sort of taught me not just the production side of things, but how you develop a project and how you set up a project and what the editorial process would be like. Prior to that, I had really only worked in the strict production on set, because that's pretty much what they did in Texas.
Yeah. Well, learning from others, that's really, we don't always give as much importance to that, and looking at who can be a role model and asking for help and learning how to do things that help set us up for that next stage. So when you decided, okay, I've got these, I want to do something really creative, you got these photos going, you said, oh, this would be a really, really cool, awesome venue of a way I can share these with others, and I haven't seen this done before. How did you know what your next step was?
Well, I didn't, truth be told. So I started asking lots of questions.
Okay, so ask. I love that. See, we have to ask.
And I sort of knew that I wanted to put them out there. And I started with a WordPress blog. And I think WordPress is an amazing venue for some people, and people seem to figure out how to navigate it. It did not work for me. And that was one of the...
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
and I only bring that up because that was one of the hardest things was I had managed to produce these images and talk people into coming out and working all for trade and all this stuff. And then I was trying to get them out there and I would get so frustrated. And some friends helped me in that they sort of stepped in and said, take a step back. Maybe this isn't the best version for somebody who has no web background. And, started talking to people and found out that there's a lot of different resources that you can do to start a website very easily. We ultimately ended up on Squarespace. And it's a funny thing to bring up, but the reason I do is it really is that sort of that decision and that moment of realizing that trying to make WordPress work for me, which wasn't, and moving to Squarespace is really when the magazine started to take shape. And within weeks, it started to look and feel like a real website and a magazine. And from that moment, I was able to start talking to people about what I was doing and show it to them. And the showing it to them made a really big difference. We push the envelope with content. It's very, very sexy. I think it's very tasteful. I think it's very artistic.
It's beautiful.
But because it's so sexy, when you can't see it living and breathing as something that looks professional, it scared people. And then once they could sort of start to see it next to other images and with blog posts and things, people immediately started to click in and understand what it is that I was trying to do. And then people started getting excited and wanted to be involved. So, I mean, I would say that I sort of felt my way into how to start building the site. And then once I had that, people started to come on board, and I've had so much help. There are so many people that kind of kept parlaying me just to the next step and the next step. And the coolest thing is how quickly some of my contacts and friends from the film business sort of also started to come on board, which really helped, I think, in a short period of time, take Arsenic to the next level.
So you've really grown organically. And do you have a vision now that you've started it? So I understand how it kind of, evolved, but at this point it's growing. You've got a lot of people wanting to participate in it. You've got a lot of readers. Do you now say, okay, gosh, shoot, I better figure something out.
Yes.
I got to have a vision of where to take this thing, or let's just see what happens. What's your philosophy on that?
It's a little of both. I have lofty goals. I want Arsenic to be the largest crowdsourced magazine in the world. I want Arsenic to go beyond being a magazine and into a lifestyle brand. I see some of that start happening. When I started, one of my sort of fantasies was that people would start using Arsenic almost like a descriptor, that's so Arsenic, and I hear it happen. I mean, not with me doing it. I hear other people do that, or they'll email me and be like, I saw this, it's so Arsenic. And I was like, so check goal 1, moving on to goal 2, world domination. I do. I want Arsenic to be the biggest sort of crowdsourced platform for sexy, artistic, edgy, provocative content. We have just opened up a shop, Shop Arsenic.
Great, because that was my next question. So great, you're growing, you're big, you've got all of this. How are you monetizing?
So the shop is going to be an important piece of that. The other decision I had to make when I started early on was, did I want to cater to traditional investors and or advertising? And I decided I didn't want to do either one, that I would sort of self-fund the magazine at least while I established the brand. Part of that was just because I wanted to move so fast that it was an easy decision to make because I didn't want to wait around for those things to come on the table. But also, I knew that the content I wanted to do wouldn't necessarily lend itself right off the bat to advertising or investors. I wanted to push the envelope, and I didn't want to be getting phone calls at 7 a.m. about, the sexy picture I put up last night.
Having to answer to all of that, yeah.
Correct. So we sort of leapt in and just started producing content that really felt right and good and that we were proud of, and not worrying about backing into what would be the, sort of
acceptable norm.
Correct. And how we would ultimately monetize it. My feeling has always been, and it remains, that if I have an audience that's sticky, if I have an audience that is excited to come and look at the magazine, that will parlay itself into value, even if it's never going to be banner ads. And it probably isn't. I mean, there's there are companies that will be really excited about working with us in the group of people that are looking at the magazine, but there's a lot of companies that will feel like our content is too racy. I'm completely okay with that, but I have enough people looking at the magazine that, and if I was just a regular old blog, I could throw up banner ads right now and start making some money. It just doesn't fit what I wanted to do or what our content is. So the shop has started to become a really viable thing that we're starting to build. And that really stemmed from people starting to talk to us on social media. We would post images and there's a moment that people started communicating back. It wasn't just that they were liking them or that they were telling their friends to go, follow our Instagram or go look at the website, but that they were actually communicating. Where did you get that? How do I get that? I want, who is that? What's the designer? And so that's when I sort of took a step back and went, okay, I think that the time is right to start at least tiptoeing into making some of these products available. So the shop is 2 weeks old. We've just started building it out. But I'm very, very excited about it. I think that there's huge potential there.
So getting started and building that audience, what was your philosophy? What was your plan for doing that? I mean, again, it grew a little bit organically, but still, you've got a pretty big readership here. So how did you continue to did it just kind of go viral? You mentioned Instagram, Facebook. What is there a definite strategy there about?
It was definitely utilizing, and especially again, since the magazine was self-funded, it was really figuring out how to utilize what was available to us and available to us for very little money. I am possibly the last person in the world to get a Facebook page, as I only got one when I started Arsenic. And I wasn't somebody who Instagrammed or Twittered. So I had a crash course. I had to really sit down and figure out, like, okay, how do these things work and how can we make them work for Arsenic? And so it grew organically in the sense that, we didn't do any advertising. We didn't, our followers on Instagram all came to us one by one. But we did start reaching out to people that were more established than us, that were still like-minded and in the same sort of genre or aesthetic as we are, and sort of started making those relationships and inroads to those people, and talking to them about what we were trying to do and getting them excited. And then in turn, you do sort of ride the coattails of, the people that you're associated with, especially in social media. So as, people that were bigger, but, and sort of considered cool brands or interesting models, and, as they started to click in, and it was in a true, real, genuine click in, but once they sort of started getting on board, then, some of their fans and their friends would get on board. We try to keep that sort of pay it forward. We try to keep that in mind at Arsenic too. If we find somebody that we think is really interesting and cool, and that's part of, the magazine being crowdsourced, that I reach out to people on Instagram every day. And, they might have 30 followers or 300, but if I like what they're doing and I like their aesthetic, I want them to, tell us what they're interested in, tell us something they're excited about, so we can potentially talk about it on Arsenic. And so the social media world has really become very exciting to me. I think it's a great way to discover sort of completely untapped talent. In turn, it's also helped us enormously start to get that sort of initial traction and interest from people. And the cool thing is, there is a tipping point. Once you sort of start getting momentum, it continues.
And everybody wants to get on board with something new and exciting. Were there naysayers? Said, oh, what the hell are you thinking?
Sure. I take it really personally. And so there were definitely people who looked at our brand and thought it was too sexy, or that we were pushing the envelope too much. There was certainly far more positive feedback than negative. And I was pretty down in the dumps the first time somebody sort of came at us with, like, what is this? And you're a woman. Why are you doing this? It's, and a good friend of mine gave me some really good advice. Like, if people aren't making noise about what you're doing, you're not doing anything. So get committed, know that you're proud of it, and expect the fact that, some people aren't going to like it. That's important. You're making people react.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that. Because, of course, you want everybody to love you. But
right.
For the most part, we've had really positive feedback.
Well, that's really great. Let me put out our number again for any of our listeners. If you want to call in and talk to myself or Amanda, the number's 1-800 893-9562. You'd think I'd know this number by now, but we'd love to hear from you. So how do you stay committed, to this vision and knowing that this is the direction that you want to go when there are frustrations, when there are struggles, and saying, because there's 100 different ways you could have gone and still allow for people to have self-expression and everything else. So how did you pinpoint this and say, I am very committed to this particular vision and want to stay with this?
It's really fortunate now when you start a business because you can interact with the readers and the people so much more than you probably could have, than you certainly could have 5 years ago. So when you have those moments where I sort of hit a wall and I wonder, is this the right choice? Almost always there's something I can immediately look at, which, whether it's some Instagram post or a comment on the website that sort of I can click into and that reminds me that a lot of people are reacting to what we're doing and it's really positive. So that helps tremendously. The other thing is I just sort of, there's a saying that always goes through my head. It's, some days you're the Louisville Slugger, some days you're the ball. And I just remember that. And so that like every day you're not going to hit it out of the ballpark. But so far we're hitting more out than not. And, I just kind of remind myself of that and just keep going, stay the course.
That's great. And I love that saying. I've heard it before and I think it's really, really great. So what is your proudest moment?
Oh, wow. It's so interesting because it changes so fast. The amazing thing I've discovered about having a magazine is it moves really quickly. So the bar keeps moving. What was my proudest moment a month ago is probably not my proudest moment even today and may not be next week. I did an amazing shoot last week with two people that I wasn't necessarily, would not have necessarily thought 6 months ago that I would be shooting with, which was really, really cool. And I'm just gonna tease you guys with that, but keep an eye on the magazine. We're gonna be publishing some really cool photos very, very soon.
Now, is that because it went in a different direction or because these are like some of the greats and you're going, wow.
These were people that I thought would have been out of, 6 months ago, I would have thought would have been out of our reach within this year. And so to have found myself working with these people last week was pretty awesome. And
pitching yourself then, right?
Yeah, and working with them in a completely collaborative, fun, everyone was there to have a good time way, not even in a like, oh, thank you for doing this. But though I do thank them for doing it, but like everyone was there because I wanted to be there. That was awesome. Seeing the Instagram grow and grow fast has been kind of really, really neat. We're starting to get a few sort of notable people following us and sort of on board, and that's been a really exciting, cool, amazing thing. So it's hard to point to one thing.
Yeah.
And I also, I don't do this alone. I do this with this incredible team of interns, and watching all of them grow and get sort of better at the different tasks they have at the magazine, as well as form genuine friendships from working at the magazine, might be even one of the most rewarding things. They all give me a lot of their time and give Arsenic their time. So feeling like they're getting something out of it is pretty awesome.
Why don't you share the magazine website, how someone can go and look at that?
It's www.arsenicthemagazine.com. And our Instagram is Arsenic Magazine, which would link you as well back to the website.
That's great. Give everyone a chance to go and look at that. So you have interns. Is this your full time?
It's become my full time. I guess I'm currently working full time plus. As I certainly haven't shut the door on my film and TV endeavors by any means, but this definitely sort of takes up the bulk of my day-to-day hours right now. I'm lucky in that the other things can sort of, in many ways, kind of take care of themselves while I wait for people to read and give me answers.
That's great. And a lot of entrepreneurs start out that way. You'll hear some of the most successful say, "Yeah, I was working by day and funding what I wanted to do by night, and then it became eventually bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and I had to let the day thing go because."
It's I think it's true. It's really hard to start something, to be in a position to start something new and not sort of keep your quote unquote day job. Mm-hmm. But I'm fortunate in that my day job gives me a huge amount of time and hours to dedicate to Arsenic, and they feed off of each other. So I also, when I'm working on one, I don't actually feel like I'm, ignoring the other.
Now, do you find yourself always being motivated to go in and work on this, or are there moments where, where you say, I don't know, maybe this wasn't the right path to go down?
I am not Superwoman. There are definitely days where I wake up and I think, oh, I don't want to do this today. I want to go to the Griffith Park and go for a 4-hour hike. But one of the greatest motivators, if I'm not doing it, no one is. While I do have an amazing team of people, I'm the cheerleader or the coach or what have you. And so if I decide to phone it in, there's nothing new going on the website. And I think that being stale or stagnant would be the death of us. So yes, I have those moments, but I have this giant cattle prod in the idea of like, no, I have to go. I've spent too much time to, ignore it just because I'm, having a day where, wearing my jammies sounds like more fun.
Yeah. Now, not sure where you want to, if this is private, but a lot of entrepreneurs start in their garage, start in their basement, start in their, especially with having a website, being on the internet, that allows you to have a lot of privacy of where you start. It sounds like you have an office that you go to, and how did you arrive at that and say this is important, especially since you do have people? But.
We were really lucky. I had a production office, for my film company. So, and when I had got the space, it's sort of a big bullpen area so that when I would be in production or working on a commercial, I could bring in additional people. And when I wasn't, it was sort of just, me. So I had this space with sort of desks and I had a turnkey office. So it was easy for the magazine to just sort of get absorbed into what already existed.
That's great. Who inspires you?
A lot of people. My dad, certainly. He was a completely self-made man and an entrepreneur. And so much of what I do and how I move forward every day is sort of, I think, often what would Al do. He's, thank goodness, also, a phone call away. So he's a big driving force in my life. And then I have a few friends who have, in their own way, sort of been the voice in my ear when I needed it, especially initially. A really good friend of mine really, really encouraged me to do this and to pursue this, even when I felt like I would be shortchanging my film career. And he helped show me that I could have both, and both could be better for it. And he's been absolutely right. And then a lot of other friends that. And the team of interns, they show up, they do the work, and that's, sort of inspires me that I at least owe it to them to kind of give it my all every day.
So have you always just owned it, just felt like, I'm an entrepreneur? I find that a lot of times people don't necessarily, they kind of skirt it, like this is a hobby, this is something I'm doing. They don't, but you have such a presence and such seemingly great confidence. Have you always just, of course I'm an entrepreneur?
It's funny. It's actually not a word that I would use to describe myself. I sort of always consider myself somebody who just sort of, I'm a little bit of an introvert. I'm a little idiosyncratic. I sort of just do my own thing. And I guess, and other people say to me things like, oh, you have these entrepreneurial ideas. Oh, you pursue your dreams. Oh, no matter what, it doesn't seem that way to me at all. I just get up and do what feels right. And maybe it was that, like I said, I had this amazing dad and I sort of witnessed this and maybe I sort of organically got it. I don't know. But to answer your question, I wouldn't say that I own it. I just sort of, I don't know how to be any other way. So, it is what it is. So here I am.
That's okay. Well, but for some people, there are moments where you say, "Wow, I'm doing this. I have even I have a magazine."
Well,
and it's like that owning moment of this. This was just an idea. Oh yeah, I've curated some things and I've got it too. I have a magazine and owning that part.
There was definitely a moment or a series of moments about 2 to 3 months in, and I sort of looked around and went, oh, whoa, I have a magazine, even though I had been saying I started this magazine, et cetera. But I don't know exactly. It was just sort of it was a culmination of things in that. I had a couple people within the course of 2 weeks sort of say, my friend told me about this amazing magazine. It was your magazine. Or, I told somebody I was going to shoot for you. And they were like, oh, I love them. And it was sort of this realization that it had grown beyond my circle of friends and their circle of friends into getting this life of its own. And that was kind of when I went, oh, we've started this. It's real. Also, and in that happening, people starting genuine submissions coming in and designers reaching out and publicists reaching out for us to cover their clients and things like that. And it's like, oh, this is game on.
So does this feel different now, like when you first started and you were looking for people to contribute, and now you said you're getting calls, people are discovering you and they're calling you and
it feels different in the sense that it's become a lot of fun. At first, I think I was trying to sort of like plug a hole. I was desperately looking for something to fill a creative outlet. And now all of that is done. I mean, I get to be creative every day times 10. So, getting to meet all these really cool, interesting people who are, whether they're designers or photographers or musicians or models, and everyone has different walks of life and sort of arrived at this place in a different way. It's just a lot of fun. Yeah. I'm like a kid on a playground every day now. And then the fact that I can legitimately look at it and see that it's, a real business and it's a real thing is pretty great.
Well, it must be very exciting having opened this store, and I want to go into that just a little bit more, to have the store, to be able to start bringing in an income now.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's easy to sort of make light of it, but yeah, I mean, absolutely, starting to see it become a viable business is pretty exciting.
Now, how are you? Will you have to be the fulfillment center? Will you have to hold inventory, or are you able to disperse that amongst your vendors?
It's really that we have really partnered with people, and many of them were designers that we were already talking to anyway. As part of Arsenic, and we want to be sort of this indie brand that's breaking new people and out discovering things you haven't heard about. There's amazing magazines and outlets and websites that are talking about sort of the tried and true. So we were able to go to a lot of these people that are new brands and up and coming, designers, et cetera, and artists, and partner with them. So we are representing their lines. We do stories or photo shoots. We help sort of support it. And we sell things through the site, but ultimately the fulfillment comes from them. So they hold the inventory and they take care of the fulfillment. We, of course, follow up and make sure that it happened, and we deal with any customer service issues and things like that. But so it's a true partnership between us and them, which is great.
That makes it easier. How I've been meaning to ask, and I keep forgetting, how often does the magazine come out? And currently it's a free magazine. Do you ever have thoughts that it may be a subscription?
Right now it's a free magazine. I wouldn't rule anything out, but I feel like I would like to keep at least the core part of Arsenic free to anybody. The magazine doesn't come out in issues. There is a newsletter you can sign up for that sort of comes out about a week to every 10 days that kind of recaps what the bigger stories were that came up in the last 10 days. But we are constantly feeding the beast, as I say. And it was a big debate, and I don't know if we'll ultimately go to a more sort of traditional monthly or bi-monthly platform. But right now, we're constantly updating the site with, different feature stories, profiles, submissions, with blog posts. The magazine's different every day.
I think that's really interesting, and it kind of goes back to what you talked about in the first place, that it allows you to be very creative, spin on a wheel, pivot, be flexible. If it works that you have tons of content coming in on one day, great. If you don't have anything coming in for a week, Gasp.
Yeah, that would be scary. But I feel like that's how we consume media now. I can't remember the last time. I'm constantly reading. I don't remember the last time I sat down with a magazine or a book and looked at it all day.
Yeah.
You tend to look at something in little bite-sized bites right now. So we've sort of set the magazine up to be that way. There's something every day for you to look at and, take a peek at. Sometimes there's 5 of them. Sometimes there's 1 of them. But it's not like, on the 5th of every month, there's this big barrage of new stuff.
Well, this also makes me kind of think about, even though people can go back and look at past content, it's really hard for us to go back. I mean, we're in a society that is moving at the speed of light, fast forward. And even though I don't use this social media platform, Snapchat has taken off in just an incredible way. And they kind of, that's really thinking outside the box, because it's really getting people to tune in now, do it quickly, because for those who don't know, Snapchat only lasts a few seconds and then it's gone. So if you want to get it, you got to get it now. And kind of your magazine makes me think of it in a similar way. I love that the content doesn't actually disappear into the universe, but love it that if you want to get the most cutting edge, because it is hard to go back, that you need to be constantly tuning in. And I think that's very creative on your part, to have set that up, and taken your vision in that direction. I want to also just give out our number again. It's 1-800-893-9562. And if you want to call us and chat with myself or Amanda, we'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. I was going to, you've mentioned many things that I would think of are really great strengths. But what would you say is your greatest strength that has really helped you in this particular endeavor?
I'm like a little yippy dog that won't leave you alone. I'm probably...
where does that come under the list of strengths? Yippy dog.
I'm probably not as aggressive as some people as far as like pitching and selling, and I'm kind of a more sit back and let people come to you, but I just don't give up. I'm tenacious. I just sort of, I decided this is what I'm going to do, and Arsenic is going to be around in a year, and it's going to be around in 5 years, and it's going to be around in 10 years. When I set my mind to something, for better or worse, that is what I'm doing. And in general, in the long run, that's served me well.
Well, I think that's, I think it sounds, from what I know of you, a very accurate description, and in a very positive way. I see you with tremendous passion. So I don't think of you as the yippy dog. I see you with tremendous passion, very excited about what it is that you have, and just an incredible visionary, and thinking about where you can take this and what you can do with this. And that's very exciting. So I love how far you've come, and where you're going with what you're doing. Now, how long is the magazine? When did you launch?
In May.
Awesome. Well, you have really...
It's been a really amazing, interesting 6 months.
Yeah, journey. Incredible. So you are obviously very tenacious and very wrapped up in all of this, and it can be all-consuming. So and we talked about how you stay motivated, and I would think that really also comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And how do you feel about the direction that it's taking, and that it's one thing when it's just you and, oh my God, this is great, I can't wait to produce this and put it out there, and being very excited with the fact that people are talking about it, people are interested, people are so thrilled to be a part of it. But now there's a certain responsibility as you grow. Eventually you may have to hire employees. That comes with a whole nother can of worms. And now you have a responsibility kind of to put this content out and to keep growing and keep it going.
Well, now that you put it like that, I mean, yes, it occurs to me sometimes that we've made a lot of promises. We've made a lot of commitments to people, especially early on when you're pitching and selling an idea. People give you advice and they give you their time, but there's an expectation that you're going to do something good and worthwhile with that. And I guess I compartmentalize. I mean, those things are important, and I think about them. They're always in the back of my mind, but I just I think, day to day, I kind of just put my head down and sort of move ahead and try to think about what needs to be accomplished today and what needs to be accomplished this week to get to the next point. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I sort of do that on the idea that, the best I can do for those people and those promises is to just keep my eye on the ball.
And doing what you love, because you obviously love this.
I really, really do. I'm really fortunate that I didn't realize that this is somewhere where I would be sort of so fulfilled, but it's definitely worked out that way.
So exciting. And I didn't mean to put like a downer on it, but it is just a reality. It is a reality. And I think what you just said is I just keep motoring on and being true to yourself, really. Being true to yourself and knowing that being true to yourself and doing something that, since you are such a great visionary, and being able to continue to have that creative bent and passion and commitment to sharing all of these creative endeavors with everyone will always speak for itself.
Oh, thank you. So, I'm going to call you the next time I'm having a bad day. You should know that. you're going to be my new sounding board. Thank you. That means a lot.
That sounds great. But I think it's important for us to all look at that and knowing what that why is, and you know what your why is. And so knowing what that is will help take you forward, and knowing what your strengths are will also help take you forward. So as busy and as consumed and as everything else that you are, what do you do to unwind and unplug and also stay refreshed?
I like to be outside, so I hike and I run. I have a dog that I drag out of the house. She hates downtown. But that's a big part of, sort of my sanity, is sort of being active and taking some time for myself. And then I'm also sort of extra lucky in that my family has a ranch in West Texas. And so it's a really great place to go and unplug. And it's very, very quiet, and there you could, drive to town and not see another car. So after 3 or 4 days of that, I can't wait to get back to Los Angeles and the craziness and the magazine and all that stuff.
Great. Now, if you could do it all over again, would you? Would you do it differently?
I would absolutely do it all over again. I'm sure there are little things that I probably would do differently, but I am a big believer in all of the things, the good decisions you make and the bad, get you where you are. So I guess not. I mean, I'll own it. We had some stumbling blocks, but I don't know that I would go back and change them. I think that they all contributed to our success in sort of a relatively short time.
How do you face your challenges? Is there a particular challenge that you've had to take a look at and say, okay, this totally is not working, and how do I overcome problems?
I think the biggest challenge, especially with Arsenic, is that I am absolutely an introvert, and I didn't really have any desire to be part of social media, and I really I'm very much a sit in the corner and at a party and let people sort of come over and talk to me, and I'm not shy. I'm just not a big out there person, and Arsenic is a really out there thing. I mean, you're putting content on every day. You're talking to people. You're convincing people that, what your dream is something they should come and be a part of. And so, I've really had to sort of step out of my comfort zone. And so I think a big part of what I work on every day is sort of reminding myself to step beyond my comfort zone, to, put myself out there more, put the magazine out there, and sort of keep pushing myself.
And is that because you believe in the magazine so much that it allows you to kind of come out of your shell, so to speak, and put yourself out there in that way?
Absolutely. I mean, today is a perfect example. I mean, normally being on a radio show is about the furthest thing that I would ever agree to do. I love arsenic, and I believe in it so much that, I would, stand on top of a building and yell that everyone should go look at it. Doing this seems like fun, but it's completely the opposite of what I would normally say.
Share the magazine website again.
arsenicthemagazine.com.
Awesome. Hope everybody will go and look at that. What has been your greatest failure?
Oh, there have been so many. Let's go with learning experiences. Are you referring to in life in general or with arsenic?
Well, with life in general or with arsenic, maybe with arsenic if you can think of one, because I think what I really want to share with this show is business tips and let people know that it's not all perfect out there, but yet there's something really amazingly awesome and great that can happen by following your dream, by doing something that you really want. And not only that you can really share something wonderful with people when you do that. You're solving a problem for them, or you're creating this magic for them, or you're solving a need, filling a need for them. And you're filling a need of creating the space that all of these people can come and contribute and collaborate and earn money from it at some point too. So
when we first started, I think there were a few things that we did that I did believing that was the right way to do them. That was the way you ran a magazine, or that was the business process. My dad always has this term, don't honor the process. And I don't know that I really realized what he meant so much until I got into the magazine. And since it wasn't something I was familiar with, I had this feeling that I should do it the right way, the way that you're supposed to do it. And I made some pretty big blunders doing that, spending money that really didn't need to be spent, that could have been better spent on other things, trying to back into shoots that really didn't feel arsenic, sort of sell out things a little bit. And doing all of that stuff, sort of trying to sort of appease the magazine gods, I guess. I mean, it's sort of feeling like I don't know what I'm doing, so I should do it the way that people say you should do it. When we stopped doing that and started just believing 100% in arsenic and what arsenic was, and always asking ourselves, is it arsenic? And if the answer was no, moving on, no matter how good of an opportunity it might seem, is really when the magazine started to click in.
Did you know pretty much, did you have that mission statement and have that real clarity about what you wanted the brand to be? I know maybe you didn't have the full picture of everywhere you thought it was going to go because it kind of happened organically, but did you at least have, really, this is what's true, going to always remain true to my brand?
Well, I definitely knew what I wanted the aesthetic to be. Absolutely. I was maybe not as committed in that, you get distracted by shiny objects.
Right.
At first.
I know that one.
And so I knew what I wanted. It was, getting the confidence to believe that's right, even in the face of some, there are naysayers. Like I said, the content is very sexy. It's not for everybody. Most people really, really like it. But, early on, when you're just getting going, some of those, the not positive feedback can just seem shocking and jarring, and it's easy to start questioning if you've lost sight of what you should be doing, or to lose sight of what you should be doing. And I would say, if I had to, I can't really, I guess I bury my head in the sand. I can't think of specifics, but I definitely know early on there were multiple stumbling blocks, and almost all of them involved not being true to the arsenic brand and not being true to sort of what we originally set out to do, and getting distracted by either somebody telling me what I should be doing, or trying to kind of get on a bandwagon or something that really wasn't true to us.
Well, I just love how clear you are, and even from the very beginning where you said, you could have gotten advertisers or you could have gotten investors, but yet knowing that being very clear about what you wanted and how that might affect your brand and what you wanted to do, it really takes a tremendous amount of courage, especially if you're self-funding it. I mean, for someone to know that there's an easy out to go and get some money from this particular place, to be able to help get this going a little faster. And of course, you've grown pretty fast, but that's very enticing. And so to be able to stand true and say, no, I have this vision. I know that I can do it myself. And be able to say no, that takes a tremendous amount of courage and also, like I said, vision. So good for you. And I think that's important to know, to not sell yourself out or to sell yourself short.
Thank you. Be stubborn.
Be stubborn.
I'm very stubborn.
I like that. Well, you've worn all the hats. You're wearing all the hats. You started out wearing all the hats, but quickly you brought on a team. Not everybody does that. Did someone tell you, look, don't try and do this all yourself? How did
I mean, I think that stems from a film background. Film is super collaborative. The process from the get-go is, even when you start developing a script, you almost always, and I'm not a writer, but I like working with writers, and you almost always, talking to people, having people read it, giving you feedback, and then it just grows from there when you actually get into production. It never occurred to me to try to do it alone. I'm also sort of impatient, so I wanted it to go fast, and I wanted to have a lot of, things on the website, and and I was running another business at the same time, so I also recognized that I couldn't possibly do it all alone. Where I got really lucky is I dipped my toe into this idea that I could possibly get some help, and believed that Los Angeles was full of really interesting, creative people that might be looking for an outlet as well. And I got very, very lucky with some really incredible, very dedicated people very early on. And had I had a less than stellar experience with sort of interns or finding people, maybe I would have kind of tried to do it all on my own, but I had the opposite. I still can't believe my luck with some of these fabulous people who came on board early and who have stuck around.
Well, you're very generous in the fact, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs and first of all, they feel like they have to do it alone, so they don't always think creatively about how to build that team, bringing on interns that you may not be paying full wages or exorbitant wages. But it's also hard sometimes for people, entrepreneurs too, especially, to let go of this idea. And also to even share that full idea. They keep it under wraps. So the fact that you did, I feel, has really contributed to your success at helping this to grow, not only as fast as it has, but in the way that it has. Because by building your team, I think it's important. We really can't do it all alone. We do have to wear a lot of the hats often, but it allows you to be able to focus on your genius work and be able to let others focus on theirs too and help to bring this to a reality. We only have a couple of minutes left, but we're out of time. All right, well, I guess we don't. And let me just say thank you very much. Do you have one business tip you can share?
Don't give up.
Okay, I love it. One of my favorites. Never, 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 never give up. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.